What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to part 2 of the worst decisions made in Dynasty Warriors. Now, it's not going to be in any particular order this time. I'm just going to have, I think I have like 11 here. I'm just going to talk about them, why they were bad and what they led to and all those things. You guys let me know down below if I'm missing anything. Let me know out of this batch, what do you guys think is the worst decision made? And as always, would appreciate you guys dropping a like or a sub before we jump into it. So yeah, I think we got 11 here. I'm just going to go down the list that I have and we'll talk about them and go on through it. Starting off with the first one here, we've got the death of Dongai.
I've been waiting to face you for a long time. Finally, we can settle this once and for all.
The false treasonous claims towards him that Jang Fay did set up the whole plan so he can set up his mutiny thing. And unfortunately, it was believed and Dongai was executed. And I believe his whole family was executed as well because of them believing what Jang Fay was saying. I believe he was on his way back after sometime after the Battle of Chengdu. He was returning home and then he was killed on his way back, which is just absolutely crazy. Very tragic thing, I would say, but just one of the worst things. Like, nobody seemed to verify anything. It was just like, yeah, we believe him. Kill Dongai. Kill the guy that was responsible for helping us break the Three Kingdoms for the first time in, you know, however many years at that point. It was always just a little strange to me. Definitely a terrible decision, in my opinion. Right after that, we got another character's death. Kind of. This is a decision made by the Shu forces, Jigalong deciding that Ma Su was a good commander for the Battle of Jieting.
Supposedly he's a pupil of Jigalong, but to camp there? Absurd.
And then Ma Su deciding to camp on the mountaintop where it was easy to cut off supplies and obviously ended up in a humiliating defeat that ended up in Ma Su's execution. He brought it upon himself. I don't know why Jigalong thought it was a good idea to have Ma Su up there, but hindsight is 2020, and I guess he didn't realize it until after Ma Su miserably failed against the forces of Sima Yi and Jungha and ended up losing that battle, which resulted in his life being lost. Kind of around this similar area, a little bit later, Battle of Mount Shi. Talking about another death here, we've got Jungha's death.
How could I have let myself fall from grace in such a way?
From the Battle of Mount Shi, Jigalong was retreating. Jungha said to Sima Yi, it's not a good idea to follow a retreating enemy due to the military, I believe a military tactic, a military book he was reading, and it said it wasn't wise to do that. Sima Yi had him advance anyway, which resulted in him dying, and I'm sure Sima Yi was kicking himself in the ass for not listening to Jungha, because Jungha was one of the most intelligent and versatile generals of the time. He should have listened to him. Again, hindsight, got that 2020 vision. We know what would have been the best decision. Now I'm sure Sima Yi would have known what the best decision was. He made a blunder on that one, ended up getting one of his best generals killed on accident, getting hit with a stray arrow, and definitely one of the worst decisions made, having Jungha pursue a retreating Jigalong. Not the best thing to do. Now, from an overall standpoint, talking about the northern campaigns held by Jigalong and Jang Fay, definitely one of the worst decisions made. The resource drain on the country of Shu from the northern campaigns, I think, was a terrible decision. It was like 11 campaigns that they did in total. I think maybe 1 or 2 of them were really successful. The others were either terrible losses or not significant enough gains to substantially say that this northern campaign was worth it, because they were just losing resources at that time. So the entirety of the northern campaigns, I feel like, was a bad decision from Shu and Jang Fay, you know, pushing it after Jigalong died. And I'm sure Jigalong at some point was realizing what a waste this was, and maybe due to his lifespan coming to an end, he was pushing it a little too hard, and then Jang Fay just went absolutely berserk with trying to make up for the loss of the sleeping dragon. Next up, we've got Sao Shuang going to attack Mount Qingqi, which was highly opposed by pretty much everyone in the Wei court, but Sao Shuang believed that the campaign was viable. He wanted to prove to himself the magnanimous nature of the Sao family. It hadn't died out yet, and that Sao Shuang could retain the glory that the Sao family once held. An absolutely humiliating loss. 100,000 troops Sao Shuang brought to attack a 30,000 defending Shu army led by Wang Ping, and I believe Fei Yi was in this as well. Sao Shuang would go on to overly stretch out his entire army, leading a vulnerability in his supply line, which I believe Fei Yi was on the path of trying to cut that off in order to pincer them and obviously do an extreme amount of damage to hundreds of thousands of Wei forces. It wasn't until Sima Yi wrote to Sao Shuang, who was the the other commander at the time, to convince Sao Shuang to retreat before that ended up happening. However, Fei Yi wouldn't let Sao Shuang retreat so easily. He actually was able to successfully block the retreat, flank the Wei troops, and Sao Shuang and his officers were barely able to escape back to Guangzhou. And following this failure, it would end up sowing the seed of discord for Sao Shuang and Sao Shuang that would eventually lead to the coup d'etat. Next up coming out, we've got Liu Shan trusting Huang Hao. I think this guy was the main reason why some of the northern campaigns were failing.
Do not listen to what Master Jiang Wei says, Lord Liu Shan.
A corrupt official who kind of just did things that pleasured himself, and I believe, at least in the games, Jiang Wei was on the verge of a total victory for one of the northern campaigns, but was called back on a false demand that I believe either the Shu capital was in danger or they wanted to speak with him on emergency matter. So instead of continuing the battle on one of his northern campaigns, Jiang Wei had to retreat and completely give up the victory in order to address this matter that he was being called for. By the time he gets back, Liu Shan tells him nobody called for him to return, but it is very since Huang Hao vehemently disagreed with Jiang Wei doing the northern campaigns in the first place, and because Liu Shan was kind of a backseat emperor and allowed Huang Hao to kind of do what he wants in terms of the domestic affairs, I think it led to a lot of internal strife and problems that could have been avoided if Liu Shan was a more competent and strong leader. Next up, we've got Sun Quan approaching the forces of Wei at the Battle of Hefei.
The enemy defense is being led by Zhang Liao himself. Both determination and focus will be required to win.
You're goddamn right I did!
Similarly to Sao Shuang's battle, Sun Quan coming in with 100,000, and the forces of Wei led by Zhang Liao having only a tenth of that number. Sun Quan greatly underestimated the forces of Wei and the tenacity of Zhang Liao, leading to one of the most insane feats from the time of obviously Zhang Liao repelling the forces of Sun Quan and pushing them back substantially. A plague would end up hitting most of his troops, and he had to end up abandoning the siege of Hefei, almost losing his life, some of his best generals and officers, and it was an absolute disaster for Sun Quan and the forces of Wu. But him underestimating him because of the number difference, them kind of getting cozy the night before, the day before their main siege, leading Zhang Liao and the men that he brought with him to successfully doing a surprise attack against them because they were so almost relaxed in a sense, getting ready for this siege. Cost a lot of people their lives and almost some of their better characters, including Sun Quan himself. Next up, we get a weird one here. It's kind of like an indecisiveness. After the Battle of Fan Castle, Wu would obviously reclaim Jing province, but then they don't do anything.
We know everything about Jiangdong and everything about Sun U.
Who?
They don't do anything. I think obviously staying home and waiting for the retaliation was smart, but then after that, what do they really do? They ally back with Shu, and then they don't do anything. They kind of just stay home and enjoy home territory advantage. I mean, they were great on defense. Wu was great on defense. I don't think many campaigns against them were made successfully. And Dynasty Warriors clearly has Sun Quan pushing this is the home of Wu, and we like it here. We understand it here. We like our home, and we don't need to extend out from there. And that's why his goal in the games is to have everybody work together instead of domination, which is fine. But it's just strange that after becoming the vassal of Wei, doing their bidding, getting Jing province back, breaking off from Wei, they don't do anything from that. I guess they try. They try to make some campaigns up to Hefei again, but they got Manchong there, pushing them back, and some other instances of that. Jigalong, when he came over and tried to push back up towards Wei, and he failed again. But, no attempts to push into Shu, no attempts to do anything. They just really wanted Jing province back enough to incite war between them and a former ally and killing one of the greatest generals at the time and everything like that, which could be justified and argued for a different purpose. But it was just weird that after Wu gained Jing province, that was pretty much the end of their story. What else did they do? There wasn't much else for them, so definitely a weird decision in my opinion. Next up, we got a holistic one here as well, and it's more of a novel thing. It's a Dynasty Warriors thing. Didn't happen in history, but Jang Fay just getting drunk always seemed to lead to problems.
You bastards!
Him and Lu Bu, him getting killed, him beating his officers, which led him to getting killed. Treatment of certain people because he was drinking is just, I'm sure we all know people in our lives that, when they drink a little bit too much, it's like, bro, Uncle Bill, why don't you go sit over there? Jang Fay seemed to be that kind of a character, and just him getting drunk just seemed to always lead to problems, except for, I guess, the Oath of the Peach Garden. I don't know if he got drunk, though. They just had a couple of drinks, and that seemed to be a peaceful end to that. But when he was off his rails, he was off his rails, and it was a never good result because of that. So I think one of the worst decisions for Jang Fay in the games is his love of wine. Final two here is going to be dealing with the Sun family again. First one's going to be Sun Ce going after Ganji.
It was Ganji, wasn't it?
And obviously the problem with this is that it led to his death. Origins, it's not a thing, it's by Luan that's causing the problem and all that. But in the novel and in most of the games, him going after Ganji and the sorcery and everything like that, him being killed in that way is tragic to say, but it's also a dumb decision. Again, because of Sun Ce's personality of having the reckless, rash nature of nothing scares him. He's fearless, the courageousness, you're not gonna get away with an injustice that he feels is necessarily to right that wrong, if that makes any sense. Because of that personality of his, it led him into a reckless area, which ultimately ended up costing his life. And I think if perhaps, he wasn't as reckless, or maybe had someone around him that was like, hey man, maybe we shouldn't do this, it would have allowed him to live a little longer. And then finally, Sun Jian finding the seal and basically putting a curse upon himself by getting the seal. Not as bad as Yuan Shu, obviously, with the declaring of the emperorship, but just claiming the seal, having it, and then having the bad juju around it for holding onto the seal, which some people believe the superstition around it led to his death, I think was a bad decision. I think he should have, maybe, again, hindsight's 2020, but maybe he should have done something similarly to what Sun Ce did. Got rid of the seal in exchange for some troops, and then just, go back home, and he became a little conqueror and everything like that. But Sun Jian wanted to hold on to the seal for a while, trying to do the right thing by the Han Dynasty. I know he was a big Han guy, and perhaps he wanted to restore the Han Dynasty, or at least that's what he's depicted to do in the games. Dynasty War 6 hypothetical, that's what his main objective is to restore the glory of the Han Dynasty. But I think him finding that seal in the well was kind of a curse for him. As soon as he picked that up and decided to just hold on to it, led to a lot of bad things, and I think ultimately would lead to his death, because I think once Yuan Shu knew, that's why he was sending him into battle so much, to get him killed. He had the battle with Liu Biao and Huang Zu. Lu Gong found him in a corner, dropped some rocks on him, or shot him with some arrows, depending on the game, whichever game you want to go with, and would ultimately lead to his death. Anyway guys, that's going to be it for my video here. These are the worst decisions in Dynasty Warriors, in no particular order this time. These are just ones that I thought of and wrote down. Let me know what you guys think is the worst one from this batch. Which one do you guys think was the worst one? Did I miss anything? Maybe we'll do a part 3 if we have some more. I'm sure there's a lot of bad decisions in Dynasty Warriors that we can continue to talk about. And with that being said, that is pretty much all I have for the video here, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, again, we appreciate you guys dropping a like or a sub, and I will see you all in the next one. Later, guys.